M2 Macbook Air is on sale for $829 and it finally makes sense to buy one. And this is coming from an avid PC enthusiast. That's right, we've come a long way from the initial $1,200 price point. And now Apple has all three of the basic MacBook Airs on sale, so we're going to compare them across all the necessary metrics to determine which one is the winner. Spoiler alert, it's the M2 MacBook Air. Costco and Amazon has listed their M2s for $829. However, I've also seen the M3 listed for $950 and the M1 as low as $699. But to make the best decision, we need to compare Apple to Apple. So in this video, I'm going to focus on what really matters, the value of Apple's entry-level, lightweight productivity machine. Let's dive in. So the jump between the M2 and the M3 was actually the first time Apple did not do a major upgrade. Obviously, the appearance of the M1 marked a new era of Apple making their very own chips, whereas the M2 brought a brand new redesign and some extra perks we're going to go over later. But the M3 just gave us the expected performance boost that, in my opinion, are not worth the extra $100. Here's a comparison of the specs for the chips. You can see that all three chips are nearly identical, with a slight difference that the M2 and M3 Macs have increased GPU cores from 7 to 8, which is an improvement, but it's barely noticeable. The M1 had the same chassis as the previous 2019 and 18 versions, with a slicked curved look, kind of tapered at the end, but the M2 got a brand new refresh. The shape is very uniform, all the right angles are very satisfying to hold. What I specifically like about the laptop is that you can hold it from any point and the weight feels balanced, whereas in the previous versions, holding it towards the end felt back heavy. Of course, the most marketable difference is the new Midnight and Starlight colors, which I've been seeing in every airport lounge around the world. However, with the Midnight version being a fingerprint magnet, I've also never seen a clean Midnight MacBook Air. Now, the M3 claims to improve the fingerprint resistance, but all the reviews are saying it's barely noticeable. Now let's look at the camera. All the MacBooks before and including the M1 always had the 720p camera, but the M2 graduated to a 1080p. This is a huge advantage for Zoom calls, meetings, and any light creative work. Camera check, mic check. Wow, you can even see the screen behind me. That's an improvement. That's an improvement. If the quality isn't good enough for you, you can always upgrade and purchase a clip-on camera, but in my opinion, a 1080p crisp camera on the MacBook Airs is absolutely fantastic. You know, even though my main workhorse is a custom-built PC, I still take all of my meetings on my MacBook Air. Sorry, Windows. And yes, you may be sensing a theme here, but the M3 and the M2 have the same 1080p camera. Let's move on to the ports. The M1 did not make any improvements and it still has two USB-C ports, meaning you can charge your laptop as well as plug in one extra USB. But the M2 reintroduced MagSafe, which is a very welcome addition. I feel a lot safer with the MagSafe because I'm always on the go, and I like the peace of mind that if I yank on the cable by accidentally tripping on it, my expensive laptop will not go flying across the room. It also frees up an extra USB port, which means while I'm charging, I can now plug in my monitor and my SD cards. Now the M2 and the M3 have the same chassis, so they're gonna have the same ports. However, the M3 does have one important leg up on the M2, which I'll go over in a second. Now the M2 does have some shortcomings. The screen is very small. It's only 13 inches, and when I'm traveling, I do need some extra monitor space. I mean, look what I'm used to. I solved this issue by going into the settings and changing the resolution. I find that this resolution is the sweet spot. I would like to make it even smaller, but then the notch disappears, which makes my already limited space even more limited. Now, there have been reportings of thermal issues when pushing the M2 MacBook Air to the limit. But come on, if you're pushing the heat on this laptop to this level, you have no business having an entry-level base MacBook Air. You should probably be rocking an M2 Pro or even a Pro Max. This is not to say this laptop cannot handle some serious computing power. I do some light editing on this laptop. However, if I have a giant 4K file, I'll probably edit on my workhorse. This laptop is more than capable to handle most editing and almost all everyday tasks perfectly. The only reason I would ever consider the M3 MacBook Air over the M2 is the dual display. The M2 can only use one external monitor, whereas the M3 can use two external monitors when the laptop is closed. But personally, if you need extra monitor space, you can still use your one external monitor and the laptop display. Next up, there's also been more reportings of the SSD speeds being slower, especially since the entry level only has 256 gigabytes of memory. This can be a drag for all creative work. However, most of my files are usually stored in cloud, like Dropbox or Google Drive, and if I need extra storage, I can always use an external SSD. So in conclusion, in the past, I've always been very critical of Apple's products since they seem to be so expensive. But Apple has really come a long way. At this point, the entry-level MacBook Air is plenty of computing power for the vast majority of people. Even though I mainly use it for travel and meetings, it is more than capable to become someone's main productivity machine. Now, between the final verdict of the M2 and the M3, you could just throw an extra $120 and get the current newest MacBook Air. But again, compared to the M2, the M3 just doesn't seem to be worth it. Pretty much everything across the board is exactly the same. The chip has a slight improvement, and the dual display, which I personally would never use, is the only main selling point. I don't really see these minor differences being worth more than $120. Meanwhile, don't get me wrong, $699 for the M1 is a phenomenal price. But even buying it new, you are buying an over 5-year-old laptop. If you're like me and you're planning on using this laptop for many years to come, how old would the M1 be by the time you're done with it? Furthermore, if you combine the design upgrade, the camera, MagSafe, upgraded chip, the M2 is a clear winner for me. For the vast majority of people, the MacBook Air will be primarily used for homework, writing notes, organizing our schedules, answering emails, or otherwise working on cloud-intensive programs like Google Sheets. To summarize, you're getting the perfect laptop for everything that isn't intense 4K video editing, high FPS gaming, and big 3D workflows. So if you're planning on using the MacBook Air for school, work, travel, this laptop is a no-brainer. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see me build my custom PC, guys, what's this? What is this? I'll attach the link below. I also travel a lot for work. I just came back from a pretty long trip in Asia. So if you'd like to see my international and domestic travel setup, drop a comment. Share with me what you'd like to see next. And let me know if you agree that the M2 MacBook Air is currently the best deal out there. Thank you again so much for watching. Please drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
I'm sorry.